Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalat wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen. Abil Qasim Muhammad wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. In the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. All praise belongs to Allah. And may the blessings of Allah be upon Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, wa Ali Muhammad, and his Ahli al-Bayt, the people of his household, the pure and the good. So in our last video, we went over the fact that we said, okay, we proved that God exists. So if God exists, then how do we know that God is one? There's one God. So we went over a few issues about the what's called the prime cause, about the unity of regulation. And what the unity of regulation means is that all the things in the universe, regardless of where they are or when they are all controlled and arranged by one force that controls all of these things. And this force is independent of all of those things. So this is what I mean by the unity of regulation. So now we'll go over the fact of who is God. So if God exists and God is one, and God is a being, then who is this being? Now, whenever we want to talk about anything, we always talk about it in terms of qualities. In other words, okay, what is this thing? What qualities does this thing have? And always, the most important thing that we want to know is what is the main quality of this thing? Because most things you say, how is this thing different from other things? Okay, for example, when they talk about humans and chimpanzees. The main question as far as what's a human and what's a chimpanzee, what is the thing that makes them different? Because if you look at it from the point of view of DNA, human beings and chimpanzees share 98% of their DNA, but they're different. Obviously, they're different beings. So what is that quality with human beings that makes them different from this? Okay, so we're looking for that. What is that main quality? What is the thing that differentiates this thing from the other things? So when we talk about God from the point of view of Islam, we say the main overriding quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mercy. And how do we know this? Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions himself in the Quran, almost all the time, except there's a few exceptions, he mentions himself in connection with the terms Rahman and Rahim. Every single chapter in the Quran starts with, except for one chapter, every single chapter in the Quran starts with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God. And then when God says his name, he says Ar-Rahman, the merciful, Al-Rahim, the compassionate. We'll go over those in more detail what those terms mean. So it's the most often term mentioned in the Quran. So we said before that if we want to try to investigate God or put God in a test tube or something like that, obviously we can't do that because God is greater than us. He's outside of time, outside of space. So how do we know anything about a being like this? Well, the only way that we can know logically is by what God says about himself. And if you believe that the Quran is the word of God, then God himself is telling you, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, the most gracious, most merciful. Always starting that way. Just to show people, and there's many other verses in the Quran that talk about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and many, many hadith that talk about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's go over these terms really quick. Rahman, Bismillahir Rahman. Rahman is mercy in the general sense of mercy. So in other words, we said last time that the rain comes down from the sky, it gives life to the earth after its death, the blood circulates in the body. The heart continues to pump blood in all the cells. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses all of these things in order to give us food so we can drink, so we can eat, so we can have families. He makes the temperature not too hot, not too cold, so we can be comfortable and we can survive. He gives us our health, which is constantly continuing. All of these things go under the title of Rahman, mercy, general mercy. Why? Because these things are given to all the people. It's given to people who don't believe in God, who believe in God. It's given to people who are bad people, who are good people. All of them get this type of mercy. Everybody, everything gets this. Okay? And then there's Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahim is a special kind of mercy that's only given to people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who believe in God, and who try their best to work and to act according to what He wants and not what we want. And only act according to what we want if it's also what God wants. So these are the people they're called the mu'mineen, the people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that belief translates into action. Now these people are given a special kind of mercy called Al-Rahim. And some of the things under Al-Rahim is paradise in the next life, heaven. That's Al-Rahim. In this life, it's guidance, Al-Hidayah. So they say, the people who are on the path, they have a special kind of guidance, or like it's described, some people describe it as a light within them or other things. The Quran describes it as a light within them and other things, where they're guided and they go, they do the right thing. They know what the right thing is to do in certain situations. And sometimes they also act as guides for other people to lead them towards the truth. And it's also firm resolve in obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they're always obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is Rahim. And what's called in the Quran the Sakina, which is a special case of Rahim, which is a peace of mind and heart that comes down to people from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a special kind of peace and a special kind of tranquility that nobody else really gets, except it's part of the Rahim. Okay? So we as a human beings, as a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're supposed to reflect the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our life, be a reflection of those qualities in our life, and we should be a reflection of the quality of mercy, because the main thing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mercy. So we should also be reflecting the mercy in our life. We should act merciful and we should act compassionate towards other people. We should forgive their faults. We should look over their mistakes. We should help people when we can help. We should give charity. We should be kind to our family, kind to our neighbors. All of these things, we're obligated to do them because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, because I'm merciful to you, you should also be merciful to other people. So with extended family, with coworkers. And there's also this concept in Islam of akhlaq, which means behavior, having good behavior with others. And this concept is so much emphasized that it says, there's a hadith from the Prophet Muhammad that says, I have only come to teach you akhlaq, to teach you manners. That's why I came. So that you'll be compassionate and merciful. You'll reflect this quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with each other. Okay? The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, even though we don't acknowledge it. Now, there are many people who don't even believe in God, and they don't, or some people who they say, yeah, we believe in God, but they don't make any attempt whatsoever in their life to reflect the quality of mercy, or to seek out God, or to find out what the truth is. They don't make any effort whatsoever. They don't care. But even those people receive the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They continue to be given life. They continue to be given health. The rain continues to fall on them. It falls on them and on the good people. They continue to be given food. their heart continues to beat, their liver continues to function, blood keeps circulating in their body, their mind continues to work, okay? And when people, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if God wanted to, if, say, for example, anybody who doesn't believe in him, he would just say, okay, poof, you're gone. I mean, this is how an infinite being. Nobody can harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can get rid of everybody in an instant with no effort whatsoever. So we would say, why doesn't God just get rid of those people who don't believe in him and who refuse to acknowledge him and who refuse to even look at arguments for the existence of God? And some atheists out there are like that. But they're not destroyed right away, but they're given chance after chance, time after time. They're given another chance and another reminder, and this is the reason why, is because only reason that this could happen is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. He's not unmerciful. So even if you say, I don't care, I don't believe in God, I don't want to hear it, these people will continue to be given signs, continue to be given reminders, continue to be given reminders of the existence of God until they die, So, now when we say that God is merciful, and some people are sitting here watching this video and saying, yeah, blah, 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 that's what you guys always say, but if God is really merciful, then how is it that the world is constantly experiencing tragedy and torment? Babies are being killed, little children are getting cancer, terrorist attacks are happening, like what just happened yesterday at the Boston Marathon. These people, innocent people, were blown up for no apparent reason. You say God is merciful, but if God is merciful, why does these things continue to happen? And also natural disasters, like hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, they're always happening. So innocent people are just washed away. So how can you say that God is merciful? And also, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the term Al-Rahman Al-Rahim, but there's also other names for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Al-Jabbar. Al-Jabbar means the one who compels people to do things. And Al-Qahhar, the powerful. And if you look at tragedies, so the tragedies that happen don't negate the mercy of God. And I'll explain that, and I'll prove that. They don't negate. Just because tragedies happen, it doesn't mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not merciful. So there's basically two kinds of tragedies that happen. Basically, we can ascribe them to two causes. The first one is they're natural disasters. They occur and people aren't involved in it. Things like hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, those are they're natural occurrences. People don't have anything to do with it. And that's the first category I'm going to talk about. Now, natural disasters, it's very clear in the Quran why natural disasters happen. And it says it explicitly in the Quran. It says they happen for one reason, and that's to make people humble. In other words, to humble people. If people had everything all the time, so you get up in the morning, every day of your life, it's sunny, the sun's shining, you have enough food, you have enough water, you have a lot of money, you have everybody in your family's healthy, everybody is healthy, and nothing ever happens. It says in the Quran that if this happened, people would forget about God. They would forget about God because they would think, well, this is just the way it is. This is life. Like they said, a fish doesn't understand what water is because a fish is constantly surrounded by water. So if you tell, they don't even understand what it is. So if people had everything all the time, they're not going to feel as though they're dependent and needy, which they actually are. But they will not realize nobody realizes that they're needy until something stops, until something stops working, until instead of rain coming down, rain doesn't come down, so there's a drought for a limited amount of time. Okay, because tragedies are usually short-lived; they happen and they're over. Okay, so. And this isn't because of the tragedy, it's because of a preconceived notion that some people have. Because some people have the notion that the only goal of this life is for people to have physical pleasures, their physical needs fulfilled. the only purpose in life is to experience physical pleasure. So if you believe that, then of course for you a natural disaster would make no sense. But this isn't because of the natural disaster, it's because of this premise that you never examined. If this is the point of life, they only see a natural disaster as a succession of physical pleasure or certain physical pleasures. But if you believe that life has a purpose, and if you believe that the purpose, and we believe as Muslims, the purpose of life, the whole point of life, is not physical pleasure, although physical pleasure is allowed in most cases, but that's not the point. The point is for people to recognize, acknowledge their Creator. First is to recognize and acknowledge their Creator. Secondly is to do what they can to obey their Creator, and as a result of that, they get paradise and they get the true goal of what they want. And some people call this the divine transaction. In other words, you're making a transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with God, for you to fulfill your end of it, and then God fulfills His end of it, and that's the purpose. It's not physical pleasure, okay? So, but people who think this, they will see a natural disaster as just a tragedy that has no purpose. And then there's the other kind of disaster, which are man-made disasters. And man-made disasters are things like bombings, shootings, wars, terrorist attacks. They're things that are caused by people. Okay, and people say, well, this is why, but at the same time, they don't understand that these things are a result of free will. So if God gives people free will, He gives people the choice whether to do something or not to do something. Obviously, some people or a group of people are going to decide to do the wrong thing. They're going to decide to do the thing that hurts people and harms people. This is a consequence of free will. So, if God gives you the free will, then you can't complain. Because people, we say that people, they chose to have, before they were born, we say that people, everybody who has free will, they chose to have free will. God gave them the choice. Do you want to be a human being who has free will or something else? The people said, no, we choose this to be a human being because they're looking for the reward of paradise. But only people who get paradise are people who have free will, who can decide to do good and bad of their own free will and decide to do good. But some people, when you have this choice, obviously some people are going to decide not to do good, and they're going to do evil. And so it doesn't negate the mercy of God because some people choose to act this way. In fact, it says in the Quran many times, the people who act this way don't harm God. And they actually, in the end, they don't harm the good people, but they harm their own selves. They destroy themselves by their actions. And they do destroy other people sometimes physically in the process, but we don't believe that the physical existence in life is the goal. So for example, people who are innocent victims of a terrorist attack, if somebody decides to place a bomb in the middle of a crowded area and then people die because of that, people who are innocent, who didn't have anything to do with it, they died or they're injured, this isn't actually, the people who died will get their reward from God as oppressed people because they were oppressed. And the people who are injured, it's a test for those people. Can you still maintain your faith and do all and keep doing good despite this obstacle? And then those people will also be rewarded. And the people who did this and don't repent, they destroy themselves. So is this in fact evil? No, it's not. If you look at you have to take your lens, expand your lens and look at the bigger picture. See, God always sees the bigger picture. People see the smaller picture. In the bigger picture, something like a terrorist attack is not necessarily evil because many people will be rewarded by this. Now, the person who did it, the person who actually did the attack, that's evil. That person who did it is evil. So I'm not saying they're not evil. They're evil. To kill innocent people is wrong and it's evil. Absolutely 100%, and Islam says this, so don't anybody misunderstand me about this. But if you look at the overall result of this, it may not necessarily be evil. You would have to look at all the different things that happen. Because of this, some people might turn to God because of this, and maybe it makes them better people, then they get rewarded by God. But like I said, if you want to realize this, you have to expand your frame outside of the, the material world, and look at it in the big picture, and look at it in terms of this life and the next life. And this is what I'm saying. So inshallah, in these videos we can learn to, instead of examining something just on the surface, we can learn to expand our frame and expand our belief. And inshallah, we'll go over the next topic in the next video. We'll expand a little bit on the problem of evil, and then we'll go into the concept of divine justice. Inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.